Darius Coleman's fist hit the glass a third time, and the window finally cracked. Freezing water rushed past his shoulders. Inside the sinking Mercedes, a woman's face was turning white. Mouth open, no air left. Blue eyes locked on his like he was the last thing she'd ever see. He didn't know her name. Didn't know she was worth $2 billion. Didn't know that pulling her from this river would put his daughters in danger, cost him everything he'd built, and force him into a war he never asked for. But what she did next, that's what changed everything. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe now, because this one's going to stay with you. Darius Coleman was thinking about eggs. 4 left in the carton. 3 mouths to feed. Tomorrow was Thursday. Payday wasn't until Friday, and the math didn't work no matter how many times he ran it. Split 2 for the girls, scramble the other 2 for himself, or give all 4 to Zara and Nyla and grab coffee at the shop before his shift. He already knew the answer. He'd known it before he asked. His 2008 F-150 rattled across the Pleasant Valley Bridge, wipers losing their fight against November sleet. The heater pushed warm air that smelled like old carpet. The radio was saying something about a winter advisory, but Darius had stopped listening 3 miles back. His mind was on the electric bill, sitting unopened on the kitchen counter. On Zara's volleyball tournament fee, $300 due Friday. On Nyla insisting her sneakers still fit when her toes were pressing against the rubber. $300. Might as well be $3 million. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Zara. "Where are you? You said 6:30. He glanced at the dashboard clock. 6:47. "Damn," he muttered, reaching for the phone. That's when the headlights ahead went wrong. A black Mercedes, the kind of car that still smelled like money, even from 2 lanes away, fishtailed hard across the wet pavement. Darius's foot hovered over the brake. The sedan spun once, twice, and punched straight through the bridge railing. Not with the big dramatic crunch you see in movies. Something quieter, wetter, final. The Mercedes hung on the edge for half a second, nose pointed down at black water 30 feet below. Then it dropped. Darius's truck was already pulling to the shoulder before his brain caught up to what his body was doing. Hazard lights on, engine off, door open. Cold hit him like a fist. Rain sideways, vicious, turning to ice on the broken railing. He looked down. The car's headlights glowed under the surface, sinking fast, like a star drowning in ink. His phone buzzed again. Zara. He didn't answer. Darius grabbed the railing with both hands. The metal was twisted, jagged, already frosting over. 30 feet down. Water may be 40 degrees. He'd have 90 seconds before hypothermia shut his muscles down. Maybe 3 minutes before it killed him. He saw his daughters' faces. Zara, 13, with Keisha's sharp eyes and that way of tilting her head when she knew he was lying. Nyla, 9, gap-toothed, still young enough to believe her father could fix anything. 4 years since cancer took Keisha. 4 years of being both parents, both the strong one and the one who cried in the shower where the girls couldn't hear. If he jumped and didn't come back up, they'd be orphans. He jumped. The cold wasn't cold. It was something else entirely. Something that reached inside his chest and tried to squeeze his heart shut. The current grabbed him immediately, pulling him downstream, away from the sinking car. Darius fought it. His shoulders burned. The factory floor strength he'd built over 6 years of turning wrenches was the only thing keeping him from being swept under the bridge supports, where the river ran fastest. Through the driver's window, lit by the car's dying interior lights, he saw her. Blonde hair floating in the rising water. Hands pressed flat against the door, pushing, pushing. The door wouldn't move. Water pressure held it sealed. A tomb with leather seats. Her eyes found his through the glass. Blue eyes. Not hopeful. Just understanding. The kind of look that said, "This is how it ends, and I know it." Darius's fist found the window. First punch, nothing. Knuckles split. Second punch, a crack, barely visible. Third punch, fueled by every overtime shift, every night he'd chosen to keep going when quitting would have been easier. The glass spiderwebbed. Fourth punch shattered it. Water poured into the car, equalizing the pressure, and Darius grabbed her by the shoulders. Expensive fabric under his fingers. She was limp, unconscious, face the color of paper. He pulled her through the window frame. Glass sliced a line across his left forearm. He barely felt it. The surface seemed impossibly far away. His lungs screamed. She was dead weight against his shoulder, head rolling. Kick, kick, kick. The current wanted them both, wanted to slam them into the concrete pilings and hold them under. Darius kicked harder, legs strong from years of standing on shop floors, running after two girls who never stopped moving, refusing to let anything beat him down. His boot found mud, then his knee. He crawled the last 10 feet, dragging her onto the rocky bank, her body leaving a trail in the sleet. She wasn't breathing. CPR training from a mandatory workplace certification 5 years ago came back in pieces. 30 compressions. His hands, calloused, rough, stained with engine grease that never fully washed out, pressed against the sternum of a woman who probably made more in a month than he made in a year. 2 breaths. Her lips were blue. "Come on," he said. His voice had that South Side Chicago rasp, earned from 40 years of living in neighborhoods where respect was something you built, not something you inherited. "Come on, don't do this." 30 more compressions. 2 more breaths. The rain kept falling. His shoulders burned. His vision started going dark at the edges. "Breathe," he said. "Breathe, damn it!" She coughed. Water spilled from her mouth. She turned her head, choking, gasping, alive. Her eyes opened, those blue eyes, and found his face. Something flickered there. Not recognition. Something stranger. Like she was looking at an answer to a question she'd been carrying for a long time. Her hand found his arm, gripped it hard. Her lips moved. Darius couldn't hear over the sirens and the rain and the hammering of his own heart. He leaned closer. "You weren't here by accident," she whispered. "Were you?" Before he could ask what the hell that meant, the ambulance arrived. EMTs swarmed them. Someone wrapped a blanket around Darius's shoulders. Someone else pointed a flashlight in his eyes. "Sir, you're hypothermic. We need to get you warmed up." "I'm fine." "Sir, I said I'm fine." Darius pulled away, legs unsteady. Through the crowd of first responders, he watched them load her onto a stretcher. Oxygen mask over her face. But she was still looking at him. Those blue eyes, asking questions he didn't understand. Then the ambulance doors closed, and she was gone. Darius walked back to his truck on legs that felt borrowed. Got in. Started the engine. The grocery bags on the passenger seat were soaked through. Discount pasta. Day-old bread. The chocolate bars he'd hidden under the bread for Friday treats. Nyla's favorite, the ones with caramel inside. All ruined. He'd have to go back to the store tomorrow. Stretch the food budget thinner. Figure it out, like he always figured it out, because nobody else was going to. He texted Zara. "Sorry, kiddo. Traffic.
Be home in 20.
The lie tasted familiar. He'd been telling versions of it for 4 years. The house on South Heritage Avenue had been home for 8 years. Small brick bungalow with a porch that needed new boards and a fence that leaned slightly left. Keisha had loved it, called it our little crooked castle. She'd been the one who made hand-me-down furniture look intentional, who hung photos on the mantel at exactly the right height, who could turn a room into something warm with nothing but a garage sale Afghan and stubbornness. Her presence still lived in every corner. The throw blanket on the couch, the sunflower clock she'd bought at a flea market, the way late afternoon light came through the kitchen window, hitting the table where she used to sit with her coffee and her crossword puzzles. Darius walked in to the smell of frozen pizza, Zara's specialty when he worked late. Zara stood in the kitchen doorway, 13 going on 30, arms crossed, wearing Keisha's expression of mild disappointment. "You're soaked." "It's raining." "No kidding." She didn't move. "Nyla already ate. She's doing homework." Darius peeled off his jacket and winced. The movement pulled at the cut on his forearm. He'd wrapped it with his handkerchief, but blood was seeping through. Zara's eyes went sharp. Same eyes as her mother. Nothing got past them. "What happened to your arm?" "Nothing. Work thing." "You work with cars, Dad, not razor blades." She stepped closer, and he saw Keisha so clearly it hurt. The tilt of her head, the set of her jaw that said she'd wait him out all night if she had to. "Just a cut, baby girl. I'll clean it up." "Dad, I'll clean it up." From the back bedroom, Nyla's voice rang out. "Dad, is that you?" 9 years old and still young enough to believe her father could fix anything. The thought settled on Darius's shoulders like concrete. Nyla appeared in the hallway, gap-toothed smile bright, homework worksheet in hand. "I need help with number 7. It's about fractions." "Give me 5 minutes to change." "Okay." She bounced back down the hall, and Darius felt something crack in his chest. Gratitude, maybe. Or grief. Or just the simple weight of being everything to 2 people who deserved so much more than he could give. In the bathroom, he peeled off his shirt. The cut on his forearm was shallow but angry, edges ragged from the broken glass. He cleaned it with peroxide, watched the foam turn pink, and bandaged it with supplies from under the sink. The mirror showed a 40-year-old man who looked older, lines around his eyes, gray creeping into close-cropped hair. Shoulders still broad, but carrying things that had nothing to do with muscle. The man in that mirror had once been an engineer, had once worn a tie to work, and sat in meetings where people asked his opinion and actually listened. That man had designed a cooling system for a hydraulic press at Westlake Industries, had his name on a patent application, had believed the degree from UIC and the hard work would be enough to build something permanent. That man got laid off 6 years ago when Westlake downsized. Sent out resumes for 3 months. Got nothing back. Took a mechanic's job at Lou Kowalski's auto shop because pride didn't pay for Keisha's chemotherapy. Darius pulled on jeans and a faded Bulls sweatshirt and went back out. Sat at the kitchen table with Nyla and her fractions. His hands, still raw and swollen from punching through a car window, helped her work through denominators while his mind kept circling back. The weight of the woman in his arms. The terrible stillness of her face before she coughed. Those words that made no sense. "You weren't here by accident." Dinner was quiet. Nyla chattered about her day, a boy named Brandon who ate paste, her teacher letting them have extra recess. Zara picked at her pizza, which was a sure sign something was sitting heavy on her mind. "Spit it out, Zara." She looked up. "Coach says if I want to stay on varsity, I need to go to the tournament in Milwaukee next month. It's $300. $300. Darius did the math. The same math he did every night, juggling which bills could survive another week, which ones couldn't. The electric company had sent a final notice. The mortgage was 6 days out. $300 was food for 2 weeks, or half the electric bill, or exactly the gap between barely surviving and going under. "I'll figure it out." "Dad, it's okay if—" I said, "I'll figure it out." The words came out harder than he meant. Nyla's smile dimmed. Zara's face closed off, walls going up, and Darius hated himself. "I'm sorry. Long day." He took a breath. "We'll make it work. You're the best middle blocker in the district. Coach wouldn't have asked if he didn't believe in you." Zara nodded, but the light hadn't come back to her eyes. After dinner, she cleared the dishes without being asked. Another Keisha trait, this need to carry more than her share. Darius watched her and felt the ache of a daughter growing up too fast because life didn't give her the choice to stay young. By 9, both girls were in bed. Darius sat in the living room with the lights off, staring at the stack of bills on the coffee table. Electric, $247, past due, red stamp. Mortgage, $1,340, due in 6 days. Medical bills from Keisha's last hospital stay, $47,000 remaining after insurance. In collections, garnishing 10% of every paycheck. Car insurance, internet, groceries. Nyla's asthma inhaler, $200 a month that felt like $200 drawn in blood. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Darius almost let it ring. Creditors had his cell number, and he was too tired to explain one more time that he was paying what he could, that blood didn't come from stones, that he was trying. But something made him answer. "Mr. Coleman?" A woman's voice, professional, polished, the kind trained to sound warm while keeping distance. "My name is Catherine Wells. I work for Vivian Ashford. I believe you pulled Ms. Ashford from the Chicago River earlier this evening." The blonde woman, the Mercedes, those blue eyes. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, thanks to you. Ms. Ashford would like to thank you personally. Would you be available tomorrow morning, say 9 o'clock? Darius looked at the bills, looked at the mortgage notice with its red stamp. "I work at 9. "Ms. Ashford would like to make it worth your time. She's prepared to compensate you for—" "I don't need compensation." He cut her off, not rudely, just firm. "I'm glad she's okay. That's enough." A pause. "Mr. Coleman? Mrs. Ashford is quite insistent. She doesn't like being in anyone's debt. Tell her she's not." He ended the call, but sleep didn't come. He lay in bed, listening to the house settle, the furnace kicking on with its rattle, distant sirens on Western Avenue, the sound of Nyla talking in her sleep, something about a puppy which she'd been campaigning for since September. His mind kept circling. The river, the cold, the weight of a stranger in his arms, and those words, spoken by a woman who should have been dead. "You weren't here by accident." Morning came weak and gray. Darius was up at 5, old habit from factory days when first shift started at 6 and being late meant losing the job. He made coffee in the ancient Mr. Coffee machine, a wedding present with a cracked carafe that still worked. These early hours before the girls woke were his, the only time he could exist without having to be strong or certain or enough. At 6, he started breakfast. Scrambled eggs. 4 eggs split 3 ways because a dozen had to last the week. Toast from day-old bread, spread thin with margarine. Zara appeared at 6:30, already dressed, hair in a ponytail she'd learned to do herself from YouTube tutorials. Keisha used to do her hair every morning. French braids, twists, styles that took 20 minutes and came with conversation. Zara never complained about losing that. She just learned to handle it alone. "Sleep okay, Dad?" "Like a baby." She gave him a look that said she knew he was lying, but loved him enough not to push. Nyla stumbled out at 6:45, still in pajamas, and put her head down on the kitchen table. "Morning, sunshine." "It's too early." "It's the same time as every day." "Every day is too early." He smiled despite everything. These moments, Nyla's grumpiness, Zara's quiet competence, the simple rhythm of breakfast and backpacks, these were the anchors. Without them, he'd have drifted a long time ago.
At 7:30, he walked them to the bus stop. The air was sharp, promising snow before Thanksgiving. Other kids gathered at the corner. The Martinez twins, the Johnson boy. In this neighborhood, parents looked out for each other's kids. Always had. The bus arrived. Zara turned before boarding. "You working late again?" "Regular shift, home by 6. She studied his face, looking for the lie, then nodded and got on. Nyla waved from the bus window, small hand pressed against the glass. Darius waved back and stood there until the bus turned the corner and disappeared. He walked home through streets that had been his whole life. Grew up 2 neighborhoods over in Inglewood, back when you could still play outside after dark. His mother had worked 3 jobs. His father left when Darius was 7. That absence taught him early. Showing up was 90% of the battle. He'd promised himself his kids would have better. That promise had survived college at UIC on scholarships and student loans. Had survived landing the engineering job at Westlake. Had survived marrying Keisha in a small ceremony at her parents' church. Both of them broke and terrified, and completely sure they were going to build something beautiful. The promise had even survived the layoff, though barely. What it hadn't survived was cancer. Watching Keisha waste away in hospice. Holding her hand at the end, while she told him to keep going, keep fighting. Don't let the girls see you stop believing. He'd kept the first 2 promises. The third one, believing. That was the one that slipped away somewhere between the funeral and the first time he couldn't make rent. Lou Kowalski's auto shop sat on Ashland Avenue. 3 bays, a sign from 1987, and the smell of oil and metal and coffee that had been on the burner since the Clinton administration. Lou had owned the place for 40 years. 65, built like a fire hydrant, hands that could rebuild a carburetor blindfolded. He'd hired Darius when nobody else would. Never once made him feel small for taking a mechanic's job with an engineering degree. "Morning, Lou." "Morning. Coffee's fresh." Well, fresh-ish. Darius clocked in, grabbed his first work order, brake job on a Honda Civic, and got to work. Jack the car, remove the wheels, inspect the rotors, replace the pads. Mechanical, predictable, honest work. The kind that left your hands dirty, but didn't leave you wondering if you mattered. At 9:15, Lou appeared in the bay doorway. Something in his face. "Marcus, Darius, you got a visitor. Tell him I'm busy. I think you want to see this one." Something in Lou's voice made him look up. Through the bay door, parked in the lot where customers left their Toyotas and Chevys, sat 3 black Mercedes sedans. Gleaming. New. Cars that didn't come to Southside auto shops. From the middle one stepped a woman in a charcoal suit that cost more than Darius's monthly rent. Blonde hair in a severe bun. Blue eyes he'd last seen underwater, terrified and drowning. Vivian Ashford walked into the shop like she belonged there. Not arrogant, just the kind of confidence that came from never having to wonder. She stopped a few feet from his workstation, looked at him holding a brake caliper covered in grease, wearing coveralls with Darius stitched over the pocket. "Mr. Coleman."
Her voice was different from last night. Stronger. The voice of someone who ran things. "Ma'am?" He set down the caliper, wiped his hands on a shop rag. "You doing okay?" "Thanks to you." She glanced around the shop, not judging, just reading. "I tried calling last night." "I know. Told your assistant I didn't need anything." "And I told Catherine I don't like being in anyone's debt." She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. $20,000.
A token of my appreciation. The number hit Darius like a truck. 20,000. The mortgage, the electric bill, Zara's tournament, Nyla's inhaler. 6 months of breathing room. 6 months of not doing math in his head every time he opened the refrigerator. He didn't take it. "I appreciate that, ma'am. I can't accept it." Her expression didn't change. "Why not?" "Because I didn't jump in that river for money. I did it because it was the right thing to do." "Most people in your position wouldn't turn down $20,000. "I'm not most people." Something moved behind her eyes. Not surprise, confirmation. Like she'd already known what he'd say and was glad to hear it anyway. She put the envelope back. "Then let me offer you something else. A job." Darius laughed. He couldn't help it. A short, tired sound that came from somewhere deep. "Ma'am, I appreciate the thought, but I've got a job." "You're wasting your talent here, Mr. Coleman." Her voice went quiet, precise. "I've done my research. University of Illinois, mechanical engineering. 5 years at Westlake Industries before they downsized. You designed the cooling system for their Model 7 hydraulic press. I read the patent application." She paused. "That's not mechanic work. That's engineering." "That was a long time ago." 6 years, not a lifetime." "Long enough." He picked up the caliper, a clear signal. She didn't leave. "My father owned Westlake Industries. Did you know that?" His hands stopped moving. "What?" "Charles Ashford. He sold the company 8 years ago to a private equity firm. They're the ones who gutted the workforce, who laid you off." She held his gaze. "My father would have handled things differently." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I run Horizon Technologies now. Medical devices. Specifically, a portable dialysis machine called the LifeStream. Designed for communities where traditional dialysis doesn't exist. Rural areas, low-income neighborhoods, places the system forgot." She paused. "We're having problems with the filtration system. Too complex. Fails in the field. We need someone who understands practical engineering. Someone who's had to make things work when there was no budget and no backup plan." "You've got a whole company of engineers." "I've got a whole company of people who've never fixed anything with duct tape and ingenuity because there was no other option." She gestured at the Honda on the lift. "You don't just replace parts, Mr. Coleman. You understand systems. That's what I need." Darius set the caliper down slowly. "How much?" $200,000 a year. Full benefits. $50,000 signing bonus. Director of Engineering for the LifeStream division. The number wasn't real. It was fantasy money. Lottery money. The kind of money people like him didn't get to touch. "I don't have the qualifications." "You have exactly the qualifications. You just don't see it yet." She set a business card on his workbench. Heavy cardstock, embossed. Then she turned to leave and stopped. "Mr. Coleman, last night in the river, I was certain I was going to die. Then you appeared, and you didn't hesitate. You didn't calculate the odds. You just jumped." She looked back at him. "That's who I need." After she left, Darius stood in the bay for a long time, business card next to his socket wrench. Lou appeared in the doorway. That was Vivian Ashford, CEO of Horizon Technologies. Company's worth $2 billion.
I know who she is. What'd she want? Offered me a job. Lou's eyebrows went up. And? I don't know. He picked up the card, turned it over. On the back, handwritten in careful script. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is believe we deserve better. V.A. You gonna call her? Probably not. But he didn't throw the card away.
He put it in his pocket, right next to his phone, and felt it there for the rest of the shift like a heartbeat against his leg. Steady, persistent, impossible to ignore. That night, after the girls were asleep, Darius sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, a 7-year-old Dell that took 5 minutes to boot, and typed Horizon Technologies into the search bar. The website loaded in pieces. Glass building in the West Loop, smiling employees, a mission statement about using technology to improve lives. He found articles about Vivian Ashford, 38 years old, took over 3 years ago when her father died. Harvard MBA, Forbes 30 under 30. Photos of her at charity galas in evening gowns that cost more than his truck, looking polished and untouchable, and nothing like the woman who'd gripped his arm on a frozen riverbank and whispered words that still didn't make sense. He found information about the LifeStream, portable dialysis machine, revolutionary design for deployment in areas without access to traditional medical facilities. Clinical trials showing promise, but plagued by development delays. Filtration system failures. Darius pulled up the technical specs that were publicly available, enough to see the bones of the problem. Dual-chamber filtration, recirculation pumps, automated cleaning cycles triggered by pressure sensors, all beautifully engineered, all wrong. He could fix it. He knew it the way he knew how to breathe, not because someone taught him, but because the knowledge lived in his hands. The problem wasn't the technology. It was that the people designing it had never had to make something work in a place where things broke and stayed broken, unless you built them simple and tough enough to survive. But knowing he could fix it and believing he deserved the chance were two different things. The business card sat on the table, right next to Zara's tournament fee notice. $300 on one side, $200,000 on the other. The distance between them was everything wrong with his life and everything that might go right. Darius picked up his phone, put it down, picked it up again. Keisha's sunflower clock ticked past midnight. Her picture on the fridge watched him with that smile, the one that always made him feel like he could handle anything, even when he couldn't. He dialed. 3 rings. Sophia Reynolds, Vivian Ashford's office. This is Darius Coleman. One moment, Mr. Coleman. A click. Then her voice, alert despite the hour. I was hoping you'd call. The job. I want to hear more. Can you come to my office tomorrow, 2 o'clock? He thought about the break jobs on tomorrow's schedule, about Lou counting on him, about the steady, small, suffocating safety of knowing exactly what each day would bring. Then he thought about Zara's face when he couldn't afford the tournament, about Nyla's sneakers, about the stack of bills that never shrank. I'll be there. Good. A pause. You won't regret this, Mr. Coleman. After he hung up, Darius sat in the dark kitchen. He wondered what Keisha would think, but he already knew. She'd been the brave one, always. The one who pushed him to dream bigger than the hand they'd been dealt. She would have told him to jump, just like he'd jumped into that river. The difference was, this time, he didn't know if he could swim. The next afternoon, Darius stood on the sidewalk outside Horizon Technologies' 40-story glass tower, wearing the one suit he owned, bought for Keisha's funeral, still smelling faintly of mothballs, despite the dry cleaning he'd splurged on that morning. The pants were loose. Grief and poverty both had a way of making a man thinner. He gave his name at the security desk. The guard checked a tablet and nodded. 40th floor, Mr. Coleman. Miss Ashford is expecting you. The elevator mirror showed him exactly what he was. A man pretending to belong somewhere he didn't. Tie crooked no matter how many times he fixed it. Suit that didn't fit right. Hands still rough no matter how hard he'd scrubbed. Vivian's office had windows on two sides, the Chicago River visible far below. She stood when he entered, came around her desk, shook his hand with a grip that meant business. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for the opportunity." She gestured to a chair, waited for him to sit. Between them on the desk, a laptop, a leather portfolio, and a framed photo of an older man with kind eyes. "My father," she said. "Charles Ashford." "I'm sorry for your loss." 3 years, but some days it feels like yesterday. She opened the portfolio. "Before we discuss the position, I want to be transparent. My father sold Westlake 8 years ago to Garrison Capital Partners. They're the ones who gutted the workforce. If he'd known what they'd do, he never would have sold." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve better than what happened. And because what I'm offering isn't charity or guilt. It's recognition." She slid a folder across the desk. Inside, technical specs, diagrams, photos of a machine about the size of a large suitcase. Darius studied it. Sleek design, touchscreen interface, portable, but complex enough that he could see the failures before reading a single note. "The filtration system keeps failing in the field," Vivian said. 4 iterations. Each one either clogs too fast, malfunctions during cleaning cycles, or draws too much power for areas with bad electricity. We've thrown some of the best minds in biomedical engineering at it. And they keep making it more complicated." She almost smiled. "Exactly." Darius ran his finger along the diagram. "You need 2-stage filtration. 1 coarse filter for large particles, 1 fine filter for dialysis. Skip the automated cleaning. Make both filters modular, easy to swap in the field by hand. Cut the moving parts in half." "That's what I thought when I first read your Westlake work. You find the elegant solution where others just add more engineering." "It's not genius. It's just what happens when you can't afford to replace things. You learn to build them so they don't break." She pulled out a document and laid it flat between them. "Director of Engineering, Lifestream Division, 200,000 annual, 50,000 signing bonus. Full medical and dental for you and your daughters. 4 weeks paid vacation. Stock options." Darius read it twice, looked for the catch. There had to be one. Nobody handed this kind of thing to a man who spent his days under cars. "When would you need me to start?" 2 weeks. Time to wrap things up at your current position." "I'm not relocating. My daughter's school, their friends. Everything they know is on the south side." "Then we make it work." She slid a pen across the desk. Darius stared at it. The contract. The numbers. The clause about medical benefits. Full coverage, no deductible, prescriptions included. Nyla's asthma medication alone was $200 a month. Zara hadn't seen a dentist in 3 years. He picked up a pen and signed. Vivian's smile reached her eyes for the first time. "Welcome to Horizon Technologies, Mr. Coleman." They shook hands, and Darius felt the weight of what he'd done settle over him. For better or worse, he'd just bet his daughter's future on his ability to be something more than what the world had made him. Telling Lou was harder than signing the contract. The old man listened in his cramped office with its ancient filing cabinets and a calendar from 1998 nobody had ever replaced. When Darius finished, Lou pulled a rag from his pocket
and wiped his hands, even though they were clean. 200 grand, huh? Yes, sir. That's real money.
Lou's eyes were wet, but his voice held steady. You'd be a fool not to take it. I want to give you 2 weeks. Finish everything on my schedule. Train whoever you bring in. Can't replace you, Darius. Best mechanic I've had in 40 years. Lou stuck out his hand. But you were never meant to stay here long term. Too much talent for brake jobs and oil changes. Darius took his hand. This place saved my life when nobody else would hire me. And you saved mine right back. Shop would have gone under 3 years ago if you hadn't rebuilt that lift motor when I couldn't afford a new one. Lou's grip tightened. I'm proud of you, son. Keisha would be too. That night, Darius called the girls to the living room. They sat on the couch, Zara cross-legged, phone face down. Nyla curled up with her stuffed rabbit, both looking at him with suspicion. Serious family meetings usually meant bad news. I got a new job. Nyla's face lit up. Does that mean we can get a puppy? No puppies. But some things are going to change. Good changes. He told them about Horizon, about the live stream, about the salary, more money than he'd ever made. Zara's expression shifted from skeptical to calculating. How much more? Enough that you don't have to worry about tournament fees. Enough for shoes that fit. Enough that maybe we start saving for college. Dad, Zara's voice went soft. Are you serious? Dead serious. Nyla launched herself at him, rabbit and all. Does this mean I can do art camp this summer? Maybe. Let's see how things go. But Zara stayed on the couch, face unreadable. Darius knew that look. She was running angles, waiting for the thing he wasn't saying. After Nyla went to bed, he found Zara in her room, staring at a math textbook she wasn't reading. He sat on the edge of her bed. Talk to me. It's stupid. Not if it's bothering you. She closed the book. What if you're not good enough? What if they figure out they made a mistake and fire you, and we end up worse than before? There it was, his own fear, spoken in his daughter's voice. Zara had learned too young that security was glass. Hold it too tight, and it shattered. Cancer taught her that. Poverty reinforced it every day since. That might happen, he said. I can't promise it won't. Then why are you doing it? Because staying scared is killing us slower than failing would. He took her hand. And because if I don't try, I'm teaching you and your sister that people like us don't get to reach for more. I don't believe that. Your mom didn't believe it either. Zara was quiet for a long time. Then, okay, but if it goes bad, we figure it out together, right? Always. You, me, and Nyla. That doesn't change no matter what. She nodded. The worry didn't leave her eyes, but something steadier moved in behind it. Trust. Not in the situation, but in him. 2 weeks later, Darius walked into Horizon Technologies at 8 a.m. sharp, wearing the funeral suit with a new tie Zara had picked from Target. Navy blue, thin silver stripes. He'd arrived 40 minutes early and spent the extra time in his truck reviewing technical documents, trying to slow his heartbeat. The engineering floor was all glass walls and standing desks. Young engineers in hoodies and jeans clustered around monitors. Darius felt ancient, overdressed, and completely out of place. A woman in her mid-30s approached. Firm handshake, easy confidence. Darius Coleman? I'm Megan Park, lead engineer on Livestream. Sophia, Vivian said you'd be joining us. That's me. Let me show you around. Fair warning, we're chaotic, but the work's good. She led him through a blur of faces and names he'd never remember. Young engineers,
most of them fresh from MIT and Stanford, all brilliant and eager and slightly terrified of failure.
The Livestream project filled an entire corner. Workstations, whiteboards covered in equations, prototypes in various states of assembly. "This is your space." Megan pointed to a standing desk near the windows. Dual monitors, desktop computer worth more than his truck. "Vivian wanted you to have natural light." "This is too much." "It's standard for directors. Wait until you see the VP offices." She pulled over a chair. "So, Vivian says you have ideas about the filtration system." Darius looked at the latest prototype. Elegant, complicated, destined to fail in any clinic that didn't have a Stanford graduate on staff. "Can I be honest?" "Please." "You're overthinking it. All of you. You're so focused on making it perfect that you've forgotten it needs to actually work." Megan's smile didn't dim. "That's the nicest way anyone's ever told me my life's work needs to be thrown out." "I didn't say thrown out. I said simplified." "Fair enough. Team stand-ups at 10. You can present your assessment. At 10 o'clock, 12 engineers gathered in a glass conference room, all younger than Darius, all with degrees from places that had never offered him a second look. He felt their eyes, the old guy in the suit, the outsider who'd somehow landed a director title. And then Gerald Thornton walked in. Last. Late. Coffee mug that read, "World's Best CFO" in ironic quotation marks. 55, white hair, suit that probably cost $5,000. He took the head seat like it belonged to him by blood, and let his gaze settle on Darius with something between recognition and contempt. "You're the new director." "Yes, sir. Darius Coleman." "Coleman?" Gerald's eyes narrowed. "That name's familiar. You work at Westlake Industries? 6, 7 years ago?" Darius's stomach dropped. "I did." "Thought so. Engineering department. Part of the downsizing in 18. Gerald sipped his coffee, smiled. Nothing friendly in it. "Small world." Welcome back to the big leagues, Mr. Coleman. Try to last longer this time. The room went dead silent. Megan flushed. A young engineer named David stared at his laptop like it might open a portal to somewhere else. "Actually, Gerald," Vivian's voice cut from the doorway. Darius hadn't heard her approach. "I signed off on those Westlake layoffs when I reviewed my father's sale terms. So if anyone put Mr. Coleman on this path, it was me." She stepped into the room. "And I think you'll find his experience is exactly what this project needs." Gerald's smile didn't waver. "Of course, Vivian. I'm sure you know best." The meeting proceeded. Megan walked through test results. An engineer named Tom presented pump redesign options. Everyone carefully avoided looking at Darius or Gerald. When Darius's turn came, he stood and pulled up the failure reports. "The problem isn't the technology, it's the complexity. You've designed this for perfect conditions, clean power, trained operators, controlled environments. But that's not where it's going." He clicked to a photo. "This is a clinic in rural Mississippi. No backup generator, no air conditioning. The tech running it is a nurse practitioner who learned dialysis from YouTube. She's brilliant. She's not an engineer. If something breaks, she can't fix it." He switched to the current design schematic. 17 moving parts in the filtration assembly. Each one's a failure point. What we need is something a person with basic tools and common sense can maintain. "With all due respect," Gerald leaned back, "you've been here 4 hours. This team has worked on Livestream for 3 years. Which might be why you can't see the simple answer anymore." The silence was sharp enough to draw blood. Gerald's eyes went cold, but Vivian spoke first. "Go on, Darius."
Two-stage filtration.
Coarse filter. Standard mesh. Available from any medical supply company. Fine filter for the actual dialysis work. Both modular. When they clog, pop them out. Snap new ones in. No tools, no expertise. Total moving parts. 3. Megan was already nodding. Efficiency takes a small hit, but the reliability gain is massive. It won't work. Gerald set down his mug. You're proposing we scrap 3 years of development based on a mechanic's gut feeling? I'm proposing we build something that functions in the real world. The real world requires sophistication, Mr. Coleman, not shade tree engineering. Heat climbed Darius's chest. Every dismissive boss he'd ever had. Every interview where they looked at his address before they looked at his resume. Every time someone decided who he was before he opened his mouth. But Vivian stood. Thank you, Darius. Megan, I want a prototype of his design. Gerald, run cost projections on simplified manufacturing. She looked directly at the CFO. This project succeeds because we challenge our assumptions. That includes assumptions about who belongs in this room. After the meeting, Darius sat alone in his new office, hands shaking. Not from fear, from the collision of two worlds he'd kept separate for 6 years. The engineer he used to be, and the mechanic he'd become, suddenly forced back into the same body. Megan knocked, stuck her head in. For what it's worth, you're right about the filtration. And Gerald's like that with everyone, not just you. That's supposed to help? Little bit, yeah. She came in, closed the door. Look, Vivian doesn't hire people on impulse. If she brought you in, she believes you can deliver. Don't let Gerald get in your head. Too late. Then let me give you some advice. Your job isn't to fight Gerald. It's to prove him wrong. Build the thing that works. Let the results do the talking. After she left, Darius pulled up the CAD software and started sketching. The two-stage design took shape on the screen. Clean, logical, achievable. This was what he was good at. Not politics, not corporate games, just solving problems with his hands and his mind. They built the prototype in 72 hours. Darius and Megan working late into the night, her engineering knowledge filling gaps in his practical instinct catching flaws her training had taught her to overlook. When they ran it through simulation, blood substitute fluid, cycles mimicking months of use, it worked. Vivian came to the lab on Friday. Gerald trailed behind her. Darius walked her through the system. Coarse filter, fine filter, simple pump. No sensors to fail, no automated cycles to malfunction. Anything that broke could be fixed with a screwdriver, and parts costing dollars instead of thousands. Megan pulled up data. 96% filtration efficiency, only 2% below the complex design, but mean time between failures is 30 times longer. And unit cost drops from $45,000 to $18,000. Gerald cleared his throat. $18,000 is still too expensive for the target market. Which is why we partner with state health departments and nonprofits to subsidize. Vivian didn't look at him. Darius, this is excellent work. How soon can we field test? 2 weeks to manufacture, 2 more for distribution and setup. Results by end of January. Make it happen. She turned to leave, then stopped. Good job. Your instincts were right. After she left, Gerald lingered. He walked slowly around the prototype, hands clasped behind his back. You think you've won something. Darius said nothing. Vivian's brilliant, but she's young, idealistic. She thinks good intentions are enough. Gerald stopped, looked at him. I've been in this business 30 years. Companies that chase humanitarian goals instead of profits, they fail. And when they do, everyone loses their job.
including you. The live stream can be both. Can it? Because right now you've cut the margin to almost nothing. The board won't accept that forever. Gerald's smile was thin and cold. Enjoy your little victory, Mr. Coleman. Reality always catches up. He walked away. Darius stood alone with the prototype and a feeling in his gut that Gerald Thornton wasn't just talking. He was warning. And men like Gerald didn't warn unless they had something planned. His phone buzzed. Zara. How's work? He looked at the prototype, the thing he'd built, the thing that worked, the thing that could save lives in places the world had forgotten, and typed back, "Good day, baby girl. Real good day." But even as he sent it, Gerald's words sat in his chest like a stone. Reality always catches up.
And Darius couldn't shake the feeling that the reality coming for him had nothing to do with profit margins, and everything to do with the kind of man who smiled while sharpening a knife behind his back. The knife came on a Monday. Darius walked into Horizon at 8 o'clock, coffee in hand, head still running through the manufacturing timeline for the LifeStream prototype. 2 weeks to produce the first field test units. Megan had sourced the filter components from a supplier in Ohio. Everything was moving. Everything felt, for the first time in years, like it was going to work. Then he saw the security guards at his desk. 2 of them, standing, not sitting, standing the way people stand when they've been told to wait for someone and make sure that someone doesn't go anywhere. Megan was nearby, face pale. When she saw Darius coming, she shook her head. A small, sharp movement. A warning. Mr. Coleman, the taller guard stepped forward, polite but firm. You need to come with us. Miss Ashford wants to see you immediately. Darius set his coffee down. What's going on? I'm not at liberty to say, sir. 40th floor. He followed them to the elevator. His mind raced through possibilities. Had the reporter published something? Had Gerald made a move? Had the prototype failed overnight in some test he didn't know about? The doors opened on 40. Vivian's office was full. Gerald Thornton stood near the window, coffee mug in hand, expression carefully neutral. The way a man looks when he's watching something go exactly as planned. Next to him, a woman Darius had never seen. 60s, power suit, pearls. The kind of woman who chaired boards and ended careers with a phone call. Beside her, a man in his 40s with the alert, expensive look of a corporate attorney billing by the minute. Vivian sat behind her desk. Her face gave away nothing, but Darius had learned to read her in the weeks they'd worked together. The stillness in her hands, the way her jaw was set slightly too tight. She was furious and trying not to show it. Darius, this is Margaret Chen, chair of our board of directors, and Robert Lawson, corporate counsel. Ma'am, sir. Darius didn't sit. Nobody had offered him a chair, which told him everything about how this was going to go. There's been an accusation, Vivian said. Gerald stepped forward. He'd been waiting for this moment. Darius could see it in the way he moved, unhurried, savoring. Last night, our servers detected an unauthorized data transfer from your workstation. Technical specifications for the LifeStream. Proprietary manufacturing data. All sent to an external email address. The room tilted. Darius gripped the back of the nearest chair. That's impossible. The logs don't lie, Mr. Coleman. Gerald handed a tablet to Margaret Chen. Timestamp shows the transfer at 11:47 p.m. Saturday. He turned to Darius. Were you in the office Saturday night? No. I was home with my daughters. Can anyone verify that? My 13-year-old and my 9-year-old. But I'm guessing that doesn't count as an alibi in whatever the hell this is. Robert Lawson spoke for the first time, measured, careful. Mr. Coleman, these are serious allegations. Corporate espionage carries both civil and criminal penalties. If you were working with a competitor, I'm not working with anyone. Darius looked past all of them, directly at Vivian. You know I wouldn't do this. Her expression didn't crack. What I know is that the data came from your account. Either you sent it or someone used your credentials. Then someone used my credentials. Someone's framing me. Convenient. Gerald's voice was silk over steel. Just days after you proposed design changes that slashed our profit margins. Changes that made the live stream less valuable to Horizon, and more valuable to a competitor willing to pay for our research. Those changes made the device actually work. Or made it easier to sell. Darius felt his pulse hammering in his throat. He'd been at Horizon less than 2 weeks, hadn't even received his first real paycheck. And already someone had built a trap so clean he could feel it closing around his ankles. Margaret Chen closed the tablet. Ms. Ashford, I think it's clear we need to suspend Mr. Coleman pending a full investigation. No. Vivian's voice cut the room like a blade. We're not suspending anyone on circumstantial evidence. Gerald's eyebrows rose. Vivian, the board doesn't make operational decisions. I do. She turned to Robert. I want a full forensic analysis of our security systems. Find out how someone accessed Darius's account remotely. Until then, he stays on the project. Margaret's face hardened. Ms. Ashford, I strongly advise. Noted. Is there anything else? The older woman and the lawyer exchanged a glance. Darius watched it happen. The silent communication of people who'd already decided the outcome before walking into the room. This wasn't an investigation. It was a play. Margaret and Gerald pushing together, using Darius as the wedge to crack Vivian's authority. After they filed out, Vivian closed the door and leaned against it. For one unguarded second, the composure broke, and Darius saw what was underneath. Exhaustion, anger, and the particular loneliness of a woman fighting a war on every front with allies she could count on one hand. Someone's coming for you, Darius said. Or me, or both. If you go down, the live stream stalls. If it stalls, I lose credibility with the board. Either way, Gerald wins. She pushed off the door and walked to her desk. We need to find out who accessed your account. Megan has security clearance for the server logs. I'll get her started. Vivian. He waited until she looked at him. Maybe you should just let me go. Cut your losses. Not a chance. Fire behind her eyes now. You're here because you're good, because the work matters. I'm not letting Gerald run you out because it's convenient for him. He believed her. That was the dangerous part. He believed her. And believing meant staying. And staying meant the target on his back wasn't going anywhere. Back at his desk, his computer login was disabled. His access badge had been deactivated for everything except the lobby and the bathroom. Someone, Gerald obviously, had moved fast while Vivian was still arguing on Darius's behalf. Isolated him before the dust even settled. Megan appeared at his door. I heard. I'm so sorry. Can you get into the server logs? Already pulling them. But Darius, if someone planted this on your account, they were smart about it. Covering tracks is the easy part. Then we find another way. But sitting at his dead workstation, locked out of every system, reputation shredded before it even had time to form, Darius felt the old weight settle back onto his shoulders. The weight of not being enough, of being disposable, of being exactly what Gerald had called him that first day. A mechanic pretending to belong somewhere he didn't. His phone buzzed. Zara. Everything okay? You haven't checked in. He stared at the screen. He should tell her the truth, that the job was already falling apart,
that they might be back to scraping by within a month, that he'd been a fool for thinking someone like him could survive in a place like this. He typed, "All good. Love you." Because sometimes the only thing you could do was keep the lie alive until reality caught up to it. Megan found the crack at 2 in the morning. Darius was lying awake, staring at the ceiling, when her name lit up his phone. "I found it," she said. Server logs show a remote login from an IP address in River North. Whoever hit your account did it from outside the building. Darius sat up. "Can you trace it?" "Already did. IP belongs to a coffee shop on Michigan Avenue. Public Wi-Fi. No cameras inside. Whoever did this knew exactly how to stay invisible." "So I'm still the suspect?" "Not necessarily. I pulled the authentication logs. Your account shows two-factor verification through your phone at the exact time of the breach. But, according to cell tower data, your phone was pinging off a tower on the south side. You were home. That proves someone cloned my credentials." "It suggests it. Proving it to Margaret Chen and the board? That's a different fight." Megan's voice was raw with exhaustion. "I'm sending everything to Vivian. She'll know what to do." After they hung up, Darius lay in the dark. Someone had gone to real effort for this, not just accessing his account, doing it in a way that looked like textbook espionage. This wasn't sloppy. This wasn't impulsive. This was someone who planned, who had resources, who understood exactly how to make a black man from the South Side look guilty in a boardroom full of people already inclined to believe it. Gerald had the motive, but did he have the skill? Or had he hired someone who did? At 5, Darius gave up on sleep, made coffee, checked on the girls, both still out. Nyla's rabbit on the floor again. Zara's phone charging on her nightstand, the screen showing a half-finished text to a friend. "My dad's job is stressing him out. I can tell, but he won't say anything." That hit harder than the accusation had. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop and went through his email. Spam, LinkedIn notifications, an Amazon update. And then, buried 3 days deep, a message that made his blood stop. Subject: Thought you should know. No sender name. Random characters for an email address. A domain he didn't recognize. One attachment. A PDF labeled Horizon_Financials_Confidential. Opening it could be another trap. Not opening it meant staying blind. He clicked. Pages of financial statements, transaction records, bank account numbers. Most of it over his head. He was an engineer, not an accountant. But one section was highlighted in yellow. A series of wire transfers totaling $3 million, sent to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands over the past 18 months. Every transfer authorized by Gerald Thornton. The money was coming from Horizon's operating budget, buried under labels like consultant fees and research expenses. But the receiving accounts had no connection to any legitimate business. This was theft. Systematic. Careful. Millions of dollars siphoned from a company Gerald was supposed to protect. Darius forwarded everything to Vivian and called her immediately. "Did you get an email?" he said. "PDF attachment, unknown sender." "You got one too?" Her voice was tight. "So did Margaret Chen, and Robert Lawson, and Gerald himself. Someone's blowing this wide open." "Can you get to my office? Bring the girls. I'll have HR set them up in the employee lounge." "Vivian, 30 minutes. This can't wait." He woke Zara and Nyla, both confused, Nyla grumpy. He bundled them into the truck in pajamas and winter coats with an explanation that was true without being honest. Emergency at work, just a few hours. They could watch movies in a nice office. At Horizon, a woman from HR led the girls to a lounge on the 20th floor. Comfortable couches, big TV, and a breakfast spread that made Nyla forget she was supposed to be asleep. "Dad, they have chocolate croissants." "You can have one, just one." Zara pulled him aside before he could leave. "What's really going on?" "Work stuff. I'll explain later." "You always say that." "And I always explain later."
Just stay with your sister. On the 40th floor, Vivian's office held the same cast as before, minus any pretense of civility. Margaret Chen looked like she hadn't slept. Robert Lawson was barking into his phone about securing documents. Gerald sat in the corner, and for the first time since Darius had known him, the man's composure had cracks. His hands gripped the chair arms. His jaw worked silently. He looked like an animal hearing a trap click shut. "Mr. Coleman," Margaret's voice could have frozen the river he'd jumped into. "Did you send these documents?" "No, ma'am. I received them, same as everyone." "Convenient. You're accused of espionage, and suddenly evidence appears implicating our CFO." Gerald stood. "This is a setup. Someone fabricated those financials to discredit me using—" "Then you'll welcome the investigation." Vivian's voice was level, but her eyes were locked on Gerald with something Darius recognized. Not anger. Patience. The patience of someone who'd been waiting years for this exact moment. "If the transfers are fabricated, the audit will prove it." Robert ended his call. "Forensic accountants are pulling records now. If these are real, we'll know within hours." "They're not real," Gerald said. But his voice had changed. The silk was gone. What was left sounded like what it was. A man watching his exits, close one by one. Margaret turned to Robert. "Legal obligations?" "If authentic, we report to the SEC immediately. If fabricated, we find the source." He looked at Gerald. "Either way, I'm advising administrative leave, pending investigation." "That's absurd." Gerald was on his feet now, red-faced. "I've been with this company 20 years, since Charles founded it. You're going to sideline me based on anonymous—" "We're going to follow protocol," Margaret said. "Full salary, full benefits, but no access to company systems or premises until this is resolved." Gerald turned to Vivian. His face had gone past anger into something uglier. "You did this. You and your pet mechanic." "Careful, Gerald." Vivian's voice dropped low. "You're already in enough trouble without adding threats." "This isn't over." "No," she said. "It isn't." Security escorted Gerald out. Darius watched him go. Watched the way his shoulders stayed rigid, the way he didn't look back, the way his hands were balled into fists at his sides. That wasn't a man who was beaten. That was a man recalculating. After Margaret and Robert left, Vivian closed the door. "Someone's helping us," Darius said. "The question is who and why?" "Could be inside the company. Could be someone outside who wants Gerald gone." She pulled up her email. The anonymous sender used encrypted routing. Megan traced it to a server in Virginia. Dead end after that. The timing bothers me. I got that PDF 3 days ago, right before the espionage accusation. Whoever sent it knew what was coming. Which means they're either involved in Gerald's operation, or they have access to his plans. They looked at each other, and Darius felt the full weight of what he'd walked into. He wasn't just an engineer anymore. He was a piece on a chessboard, in a game that had started long before he pulled Vivian Ashford from the Chicago River. "There's something else I need to tell you," Vivian said. She opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "I should have told you before I hired you." Inside, police reports, newspaper clippings, photos of a car, crumpled and twisted against a mountain guardrail. "My father didn't just die 3 years ago. He died in a single-vehicle crash on a mountain road. Police ruled it an accident. But you don't think it was." He'd discovered financial irregularities at Horizon, millions unaccounted for. He was going to bring in outside auditors.
She took the folder back. And then he was dead. The room felt smaller.
You think Gerald? I think someone didn't want my father asking questions. And I think the same people don't want you succeeding with the life stream.
She met his eyes. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what we're dealing with. Gerald is more than a corporate bully. He's dangerous.
Then fire him.
I need proof the board will accept, and the board trusts him more than they trust me. I'm young, female, too idealistic. Their words. Gerald's been here since the beginning. He has allies I don't. Her jaw set. But I'm patient, and the life stream's success is part of building my case. When we prove humanitarian work can be profitable, I'll have the leverage to clean house.
And if the life stream fails?
Then Gerald wins. Everything my father built gets dismantled for quarterly earnings.
Darius almost laughed at the absurdity. A mechanic from the South Side, suddenly standing at the center of a corporate war. A murder investigation that wasn't officially an investigation. And the future of medical technology for communities that looked a lot like his own. I won't let you down, he said.
I know you won't.
His phone buzzed. Zara. Nyla ate 3 croissants and she's running around like crazy. How long are we stuck here? I need to get the girls to school.
Go. This will be here Monday.
But as Darius reached the door, Vivian's voice stopped him. Watch your back. If Gerald's desperate enough to steal millions, he's desperate enough to do worse. The drive home was quiet. Nyla crashed hard from her sugar high and fell asleep in the back seat. Zara stared out the window, turning something over in her head. Darius could feel the question coming before she asked it.
That woman, Miss Ashford.
What about her?
She trusts you a lot. Bringing us to her office at 6 in the morning.
We're dealing with a complicated situation. Is it dangerous? He gripped the steering wheel. Zara's eyes in the rearview mirror were steady, waiting for truth or lie, and ready to know the difference. It might be. Someone's trying to hurt people I work with. I don't think you and Nyla are targets, but I need you to be smart.
Smart how?
Don't talk to strangers about me or my job. If anyone approaches you, anyone, you tell me immediately. And if you ever see anything off, cars you don't recognize sitting outside, people watching the house, you call 911 first, then me. Zara filed the instructions away the way she filed everything, carefully, completely, without drama.
Dad, are we going to be okay?
The question every parent dreaded, the one that demanded a promise you couldn't make. We're going to fight like hell to be okay. That's all I can give you.
That's enough.
They made it to school just before the bell. Darius watched his daughters walk through the doors. Zara shepherding Nyla, both of them carrying backpacks, and the invisible weight of knowing their father was in trouble. And sat in his truck until the parking lot was empty. His phone rang. Unknown number. Local area code.
Mr. Coleman, this is Detective Laura Chen, Chicago PD. I'd like to speak with you about an incident involving your employer.
His grip tightened on the wheel. What kind of incident?
I prefer to discuss it in person. Can you come to the 18th District this afternoon? Say 2 o'clock?
Am I being charged?
Not at this time. We just have questions.
He called Vivian the second he hung up. The police want to talk to me.
Don't go without a lawyer. I'll have Robert meet you at the station.
I can't afford.
The company covers it. This is connected to Horizon. You're not alone in this.
At 2 o'clock, Darius sat in an interrogation room at the 18th District. Gray walls, metal table, mirror that was definitely one-way glass. Robert Lawson beside him, briefcase open, face professionally blank. Detective Chen was sharp-eyed and tired. She set a folder on the table, nodded at Robert, and got to it. We received a complaint from Horizon Technologies regarding potential theft of intellectual property. Specifically, allegations that Mr. Coleman accessed confidential files and transmitted them to an outside party. She opened the folder. Your side? Robert leaned forward. My client denies wrongdoing. Evidence suggests his credentials were compromised by a third party. That's what they all say. Chen pulled out a printed email. This was sent to our financial crimes unit this morning. Anonymous tip. Claims Mr. Coleman's been working with a competitor called Nexus Biomed. She slid a bank statement across the table. Darius looked at it. An account at First Chicago Bank. His name. His address on South Heritage Avenue. Opened 3 months ago. Deposits totaling $75,000 from Nexus Biomed Corporation over the past 2 weeks. Everything looked real. Everything except the fact that he'd never opened this account in his life. Someone's framing me. Here's my problem, Mr. Coleman. Chen leaned back. You're a mechanic who gets hired as a director at a billion-dollar tech company. Within 2 weeks, proprietary data gets stolen from your workstation. An account in your name starts filling up with competitor money. She tapped the statement. From where I'm sitting, that's a pattern. Robert's voice was sharp. Do you have evidence linking my client to the creation of this account? We're working on it. Then suspicion isn't evidence. Unless you're filing charges, we're done. Chen studied Darius for a long moment. He felt it, the weight of her assessment. A black man from the South Side sitting across from a cop, accused of a crime he didn't commit, with evidence that said otherwise. He'd spent 40 years navigating that particular gravity. He knew how the math worked in rooms like this. I'm not charging you yet, Chen said, but I will be investigating. Don't leave town. Outside the station, Darius leaned against his truck. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Robert stood beside him, phone already out. This is bad. Whoever's setting you up built a real paper trail. The bank account, the deposits, the timing. It's designed to look airtight. Can you prove it's fake? Banks don't hand over records without court orders. Court orders take time. Robert paused. You have kids? 2 daughters. Then think about them. Because if this goes wrong, wire fraud, theft of trade secrets, conspiracy, that's 20 years. Federal. 20 years. Jazz would be 33. Nyla, 29. He'd miss graduations, birthdays. Nyla learning to drive. Zara's prom. Everything. All of it. His daughters growing up visiting their father through prison glass. I didn't do this, Darius said. I believe you, but belief doesn't win in court. Evidence does. And right now, the evidence says you're guilty. That night, Darius sat Zara and Nyla down in the living room and told them what he could. Someone was making it look like he'd done something wrong at work. The police were asking questions. Things might get hard for a while. Nyla cried, confused, scared, picking up on the fear he couldn't hide no matter how hard he tried. Zara went silent. That terrible, familiar silence. The same silence she'd worn when Keisha was in hospice, and everyone kept saying it would be okay, and she'd already figured out it wouldn't be. Darius held them both on the couch, one under each arm, and felt every failure he'd ever committed pressing down on his chest. He'd taken this job to give them more. Instead, he'd brought danger into their house, into their lives, into the small, fragile stability he'd spent 4 years building from nothing. Later, after Nyla was in bed, Zara found him in the kitchen. Dad? Yeah, baby girl. What happens if they arrest you? He'd been running from that question all day, hearing it in his daughter's voice, flat, practical, A 13-year-old preparing for the worst because life had already taught her to, was the thing that finally cracked him open. Then your Aunt Michelle takes care of you and Nyla until I get out. And if you don't get out? He pulled her to him. She was almost as tall as Keisha had been. When had that happened? Then you remember your father loved you more than anything in this world, and you take care of your sister. And you don't let this break you. You hear me? Don't let it break you. She was crying, silently, the way Keisha used to cry. No sound, just shaking. Tears running but never a noise, as if making a sound would make the pain real. He held her until it stopped, until she pulled back and wiped her face with her sleeve and looked at him with eyes that were too old for 13 and too young for what the world was demanding of them. I hate them, she said. Whoever's doing this to you. Yeah, Darius said. Me too. She went to bed. He stayed in the kitchen, lights off, Keisha's picture on the fridge watching him. The house was quiet. The furnace rattled. Somewhere on Western Avenue, a siren wailed and faded. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You should have taken the $20,000 and walked away, Mr. Coleman. Now it gets expensive. Darius stared at the screen, read it twice, 3 times. Then he set the phone face down on the table, walked to the front door and checked the lock. Walked to the back door, checked that lock. Checked every window. Stood in the hallway between his daughter's bedrooms and listened to them breathe. Whoever sent that message wanted him scared. Wanted him to run. Wanted him to fold, take whatever deal they offered, and disappear back into the life they thought he deserved. Small, quiet, invisible. They didn't know him. They didn't know what it took to bury a wife at 36 and get up the next morning and make breakfast for 2 little girls who kept asking when mommy was coming home. They didn't know what it cost to work doubles at the shop and come home and help with homework and fall asleep in a chair because the bed was too empty. They didn't know that Darius Coleman had already survived the worst thing the world could throw at a man, and he was still standing. He wasn't going to run. He walked back to the kitchen, picked up his phone, and called Vivian. They just texted me, threatened me. What did it say? He read it to her. Silence on the line. Then, save it. Screenshot everything. Forward it to Robert. A breath. Darius, I'm sorry. I brought you into this. You gave me a chance. What they're doing with it, that's on them. What do you want to do? He looked at Keisha's picture, at the stack of bills, at the sunflower clock ticking past midnight in the kitchen of the house where he'd raised his girls alone for 4 years, where he'd learned that strength wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving when fear was all you had left. I want to fight, he said. I want to burn them down. Vivian didn't answer right away. Darius could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, measuring what he'd said, weighing it against everything it would cost. Then we need proof, she said. Not just the server logs, not just the anonymous financials. We need something that connects Gerald directly to Nexus Biomed in a way no lawyer can spin and no board member can ignore. How? I don't know yet, but I know someone who might. She hung up. Darius sat in the dark kitchen and waited for morning, the way soldiers wait for a fight they've already agreed to. Not with peace, but with the grim clarity that comes after the decision is made and the only thing left is the doing. The next morning, everything accelerated. Megan called at 6. Her voice was wrong. Shaking, breathless, the sound of someone trying to hold it together and failing. Someone broke into my apartment last night. Darius was already reaching for his keys. Are you hurt? No, I wasn't home. I stayed late at a friend's place. She took a ragged breath. They tore the place apart, Darius.
Took my laptop, my work tablet, all my backup drives, everything I had on the server logs, the authentication data, the cell tower records. Gone.
Did you call the police?
They came, took a report, said it was probably a random burglary.
Her voice cracked.
But they only took the electronics, left my jewelry, left the TV, left cash sitting on my dresser.
This wasn't random. Where are you now? A hotel on North Avenue. I'm scared. Whoever did this knows where I live. They know I've been helping you. Darius felt the trap tightening. First him, now Megan. Gerald, or whoever was really running this, was cutting away everyone who could prove Darius's innocence. Methodical, surgical, like removing witnesses before a trial that hadn't started yet. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you.
Darius, you can't. If they're watching.
You helped me when nobody else would. I'm not leaving you out there alone. He woke the girls, told them they were skipping school today. Zara asked why. Nyla sensed the fear in the house and went quiet, clutching her rabbit close, watching her father with wide eyes. He loaded them into the truck and drove to the hotel. Megan was waiting in the lobby, duffel bag at her feet, dark circles under her eyes. She looked at Zara and Nyla in the back seat, and something crossed her face. Guilt, maybe, for dragging children into this.
I'm sorry, she said as she climbed in.
Don't be. None of this is on you.
At the house, Megan sat at the kitchen table while Darius made coffee.
Zara kept Nyla occupied in the living room with cartoons,
but Darius caught his older daughter watching them through the doorway, cataloging, processing, being 13 and carrying 40.
Okay, Darius said. Walk me through it. Gerald's embezzling. That's established from the anonymous email. But the espionage frame, the fake bank account, breaking into your place, that's a different level. Megan wrapped her hands around the coffee mug.
Gerald's smart, but he's a money guy. He doesn't have the technical skills to hack accounts and clone credentials. He's working with someone.
Nexus Biomed.
Has to be. She pulled up her phone, the one device the burglars hadn't gotten.
Nexus has been trying to build a portable dialysis machine for years. Their designs keep failing FDA approval. If they could get our Lifestream specs, they'd skip millions in R&D. So Gerald feeds them data. They pay him. And when I show up and actually make the thing work, you become the biggest problem in the room. A successful Lifestream means Vivian wins. Gerald's embezzlement becomes harder to hide inside a profitable division. And Nexus loses their back door to our technology. Megan looked at him. They need you gone, Darius. Not just fired. Destroyed. Discredited so completely that no one believes anything you say. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, desperation, the stubborn refusal to hide from whatever was coming, made him pick up.
Mr. Coleman, this is Diane Walsh. We spoke briefly last week.
The reporter. The one who'd called asking about his connection to Westlake. He'd hung up on her.
I don't have anything to say to you. Wait, I'm not calling for a quote. I'm calling because I have information you need. Her voice was fast, urgent, stripped of the professional smoothness from their first conversation.
I've been investigating Nexus Biomed for 6 months. They have a pattern, acquiring technology through corporate espionage, bribery, intimidation. And I have emails linking Gerald Thornton directly to their CEO, Richard Vance.
Darius gripped the phone. Where did you get that?
Source inside Nexus. Someone who's watched them destroy people and decided they'd had enough.
A pause.
There's more. I have evidence that Nexus set up the fake bank account in your name, made the deposits, then tipped off the police. They wanted you arrested and removed from the Lifestream project. Why are you telling me this? You're a reporter. Publish it. I will, but a reporter's investigation only goes so far.
What turns a story into something that actually changes things is a victim willing to go on the record, testify, put a face to what they did. She let that sit. Meet me. Let me show you what I have. If it clears your name, great. If not, at least you know what you're fighting. Every instinct said trap. Another setup. Another door that looked like an exit, but was really a cage. But what choice did he have? The police thought he was guilty. The board thought he was guilty. His own lawyer believed him, but said belief didn't win in court. Where? Navy Pier, noon. Food court by the Ferris wheel. Come alone, or I walk. After he hung up, Megan was staring at him. Tell me you're not actually meeting a reporter at Navy Pier based on a phone call. You have a better idea? Yes, we take what we have to Vivian and let the lawyers handle it. The lawyers think I'm a criminal, Megan. The police think I'm a criminal. The board thinks I'm a criminal. Darius stood. I need proof.
If she has it, I'm going. Zara appeared in the kitchen doorway. Dad, Nyla's asking if we can go to the aquarium.
Not today, baby girl. She didn't move. Her eyes went from Darius to Megan to the phone on the table and back to Darius.
She doesn't understand why we're not in school. Neither do I.
Zara's voice was controlled, but there was pressure behind it.
You keep saying everything's fine, but we're hiding in our own house with your coworker who looks like she hasn't slept in a week. Something's really wrong.
He'd underestimated her, again. 13, but already carrying the kind of awareness that most people didn't develop until life had hit them enough times. Keisha had been like that, able to read a room before anyone in it knew what they were feeling. Someone's trying to hurt me professionally. I'm working on fixing it, but until I do, I need you and Nyla safe.
Safe from who?
The question he couldn't answer honestly.
Safe from corporate criminals who'd already broken into an apartment, who'd threatened him by text, who'd written emails about using the family angle against him, his daughters reduced to leverage in a boardroom war.
Just safe. Can you trust me?
Zara studied his face. The same look Keisha used to give him when she was deciding whether to push harder or let him work it out.
Whatever you're about to do, she said, don't be stupid.
I'll try.
Try harder.
At 11:30, Darius left Megan with the girls. She had a concealed carry permit and a small pistol in her purse, which was both the most reassuring and most terrifying thing he'd learned about her. He drove to Navy Pier. The place was nearly empty on a cold November weekday. A few school groups, retirees,
a mother with a daughter about Nyla's age, both laughing at something on the girl's phone.
The kind of normal moment his kids deserved and weren't getting because their father had reached for something better and grabbed a live wire instead. He bought a coffee he didn't drink and sat in the food court. Noon came. 12:15, 12:30. He started to think he'd been played. Then Diane Walsh appeared. 30s, red hair, dressed like a tourist in jeans and a North Face jacket. She sat across from him without small talk.
You came. Good.
I'm here. Show me what you have. She pulled a flash drive from her pocket and set it on the table between them. Emails between Gerald Thornton and Richard Vance, CEO of Nexus. 8 months of communication. They discussed payment schedules, data deliverables, and timelines for, and I'm quoting, removing obstacles from the Lifestream project. The timing matches every breach at Horizon. Darius didn't touch the drive yet.
What else?
Documentation of the fake bank account. Nexus created it. Nexus made the deposits. Nexus tipped the police and the FBI. She pushed the drive closer. And there's one email you need to see specifically, dated 3 days before you were accused of espionage. What's it say? The engineer is becoming a problem. His design actually works, which complicates our timeline. Recommend accelerating Phase 2. Full discreditation and removal. She paused. The family angle provides useful leverage if needed. The family angle. Darius felt something cold move through him. Not fear exactly, but the kind of controlled fury that comes when you realize the people trying to destroy you have been looking at your children and calculating how best to use them. Why give this to me instead of just publishing? Because I need you to go on record. Testify publicly about what happened. A reporter's investigation gets clicks.
A man standing up and telling the world what they did to him and his family. That's what changes things. And if I refuse?
Diane's eyes were steady. Then Nexus wins. Gerald walks away rich, and you spend the next decade fighting charges you can't beat, while the Lifestream, a machine that could save thousands of lives, dies in a boardroom. Darius picked up the flash drive, turned it over in his fingers. Such a small thing to carry so much weight. One more thing, Diane said, standing to leave. The anonymous email you received, the one with Gerald's financial records. That was me. I couldn't watch you twist without giving you something to fight with. But I need you to actually fight, Mr. Coleman. Because if you don't, people like Gerald and Nexus keep winning. And the people who need that dialysis machine keep dying. She left. Darius sat alone with the flash drive and the cold coffee, and the weight of a choice that had no safe option.
He called Vivian from the parking lot. I have it. Emails, bank records, everything connecting Gerald and Nexus. Enough to bury them both. Where did you get it? Diane Walsh, the Tribune reporter. She has a source inside Nexus. Silence. Then, that's either our salvation or another trap. It's real, Vivian. I can feel it. Send me the files. Robert needs to review everything before we move. He sent them from his truck, sitting in the Navy Pier lot, watching families walk by. People living normal lives, where the biggest decision of the day was deep dish or thin crust. Then he drove home. Megan met him at the door. Someone called the house phone while you were gone, asked for you by name. When I said you weren't available, they hung up. Could have been anyone. Caller ID said Nexus Corporation. They weren't hiding anymore. Darius checked on the girls, both in Nyla's room, playing some elaborate game involving stuffed animals and a cardboard castle. Nyla was laughing. Zara was letting her little sister win. Normal moments carved out of chaos. The kind of thing he was fighting to protect. That evening, Vivian called back. Her voice carried something new. Not the controlled CEO tone, not the quiet vulnerability he'd seen glimpses of. This was decision time, and she was laying the options flat. Roberts reviewed the files. They're legitimate. This is enough to take down Gerald and make a strong case against Nexus with the SEC and the FBI. So we go. It's not that simple. She took a breath. There are two paths, Darius. I need you to hear both before you decide. I'm listening. Path 1. We go public. Diane publishes. The SEC investigates. This becomes front-page news. Gerald gets arrested. Nexus gets exposed. You're vindicated. A pause. But your name gets dragged through mud, publicly, before it gets cleared. Your daughters will see their father accused of crimes on the evening news. Every neighbor, every teacher, every parent at their school will know. And even after you're exonerated, the stink doesn't fully wash off. Companies Google candidates before they hire them. The accusation lives online forever. And path 2? We use the evidence privately. Force Gerald out behind closed doors. Negotiate a settlement with Nexus. They pay damages, sign NDAs, and we all move on. You resign from Horizon with a severance package, enough to keep you and the girls comfortable for years. The live stream continues under new leadership. Your name stays clean. Nobody outside this building ever knows what happened. It was the smart choice, the safe choice. Take the money, protect his family, disappear back into the quiet life that people like Gerald assumed was all he deserved. The girls would never have to hear their father called a criminal on television. He'd never have to sit in another interrogation room. He could go back to Lou's shop or find another engineering job somewhere small, somewhere that didn't come with billionaires and boardrooms and people who saw his daughters as leverage. Keisha would have told him to take it, wouldn't she? Protect the girls first. Always the girls first. But then he heard Zara's voice in his head. Not the scared version from last night, asking, what happens if they arrest you? The other version. The one that said, we take care of each other. The one that said, Mom always said you were the strongest person she knew. Not because you never broke, but because you always got back up. And Vivian's words from weeks ago, borrowed from her father. The measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when every choice is hard and every path is painful. No, Darius said. We go public. Darius, if we bury it, Gerald walks away comfortable. Nexus pays a fine they can afford and finds someone else to steal from. And the next person they target, some other engineer, some other guy who doesn't have a Vivian Ashford in this corner. He goes down. He goes to prison. His kids grow up without a father. Darius's voice was steady now, more steady than it had been in weeks. I won't carry that. And I won't teach my daughters that the way you survive is by keeping your head down and hoping the people with power decide to leave you alone. Vivian was quiet for a long time. Long enough that Darius checked if the call had dropped. Okay, she said. Then we fight. Diane publishes tomorrow. I'll prepare a statement for the board and a press release for the media. And Darius, you should know. Once this goes public, it can't be undone. Everything that follows, the scrutiny, the attention, the ugliness, you and your girls will be in the middle of it. We've been in the middle of ugly before. We're still here. Thank you for being willing to bleed for this. Just make sure the bleeding counts for something. After he hung up, Darius walked through the house, checked every lock, every window, looked out the front door at the street. Empty, quiet, the same South Side block he'd known for 8 years. But it felt different now. Watched, measured. In Nyla's room, his youngest was asleep with the rabbit tucked under her chin. He stood in the doorway and listened to her breathe and thought about what it meant to choose a fight that could take him away from her. In Zara's room, the light was still on. She was scrolling through her phone, not really looking at it, just waiting. Couldn't sleep either, he said from the doorway. She set the phone down. Just thinking. About what? About Mom. What she'd say about all this. Darius came in and sat on the edge of her bed. The mattress dipped under his weight the way it had 1,000 times before. Homework sessions, bedtime stories, the awful quiet night after the funeral when Zara couldn't stop crying and he'd sat right here until the sun came up. What do you think she'd say? Zara pulled at a thread on her blanket. That you're being stubborn and brave and kind of stupid. She looked up.
But she'd be proud anyway. She always said you were the strongest person she knew. Your mom was stronger than me by a mile. Maybe, but she chose you. That means she saw something. Zara's eyes were wet, but her voice held. So what happens now? Tomorrow, a reporter publishes a story about what's really happening at my company. The truth about the people who tried to frame me. It's going to be loud. It's going to be ugly. People at school might hear about it. People might say things about me that aren't true. I don't care what people say. You might, when it's happening. And that's okay. He took her hand. But eventually the truth comes out. It always does. And when it does, we'll be on the right side of it. Zara squeezed his hand. Dad? Yeah? When this is over, can we get a dog? The question hit him sideways. So ordinary, so perfectly, beautifully normal in the middle of everything falling apart. He almost lost it right there. Not from sadness, but from the fierce, desperate love he felt for this girl who could stare down fear and still ask about a dog. Yeah, baby girl, when this is over, we get a dog. He kissed her forehead and left her to sleep. Walked back to the kitchen, sat down with his laptop and the flash drive, and opened every file, reading through them one more time. The emails, the transaction records, the cold corporate language of men who discuss destroying a family the way they'd discuss a quarterly report. He copied everything to 3 locations: laptop, cloud drive, a thumb drive he'd hide in the garage behind the water heater where nobody would think to look. If this was going to be war, he needed insurance. And if something happened to him, he needed to make sure the evidence survived, even if he didn't. Keisha's picture watched from the fridge. Her smile, her eyes, the way she used to look at him on the hard days and say, "We didn't come this far to only come this far." "I know, baby," Darius said to the empty kitchen. "I know." His phone buzzed one last time before dawn. Vivian. Diane publishes at 8 a.m. Board meeting at 10. Be ready. Darius set the phone down and did the only thing left to do. He made coffee, checked the locks one more time, and stood in the hallway between his daughter's bedrooms, listening to them breathe, guarding the only things in this world that mattered more than the truth, the 2 people who made the truth worth fighting for. Outside, the first gray light of morning crept through the windows. Somewhere on Western Avenue, the city was waking up. And Darius Coleman, 40 years old, single father, mechanic turned engineer, turned target, turned something he didn't have a name for yet, stood in his small house on the south side and waited for the war to begin. Diane Walsh's article hit the Tribune's website at 8:02 a.m. Darius knew because his phone started buzzing 2 minutes later and didn't stop. Megan called first, then Robert Lawson, then 3 numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored them all. He was standing at the kitchen counter, pouring cereal for Nyla, who was complaining that the milk was almost empty, and could they please get the kind with chocolate in it next time? "Regular milk is fine, Nye." "Regular milk is boring." "Life is boring sometimes. Eat your cereal." Zara came out of her room, already dressed, phone in hand, face tight. She held it up so Darius could see the screen. The headline read, "Horizon Technologies CFO accused of multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. Whistleblower engineer framed in corporate cover-up." "Is this you?" Zara asked. "The whistleblower engineer?" "Yeah, that's me." "It's got your name in it, Dad. Your picture. Where did they even get your picture?" "Probably LinkedIn. I haven't updated it in 6 years." "You look younger in it." "I was younger in it." Nyla looked up from her cereal. "What are you guys talking about?" "Dad's famous," Zara said, and her voice carried something Darius couldn't quite read. Fear, pride, anger, all of it tangled together the way emotions get when you're 13
and the world is louder than it should be.
Famous how? Nyla asked.
Eat your cereal, Nye, Darius said. He drove them to school. The bus would have been fine, but today he wanted to see them walk through those doors himself. Wanted to watch until they disappeared. At the curb, Zara paused with her hand on the door handle.
Kids are going to talk.
Probably.
What do I say?
The truth. Your dad didn't do anything wrong. People tried to say he did, and they got caught lying.
And if they don't believe me?
Then they don't deserve your time. He held her gaze. You know who I am, Zara. That's what matters. She nodded, got out, took Nyla's hand, and walked toward the building. At the doors, Nyla turned and waved. Small hand, gap-toothed smile. No idea what was happening. Just happy to see her dad watching. Darius waved back and sat in the truck until they were inside. Then he drove downtown. The Horizon Technologies lobby was chaos. 2 news vans parked outside, a cluster of reporters near the entrance, security guards who looked nervous in a way security guards aren't supposed to look. Darius badged in at the employee entrance and took the elevator to 40. Vivian was already in the boardroom. Margaret Chen sat at the head of the table, face carved from granite.
Robert Lawson had files spread across half the surface.
3 board members Darius had never met occupied chairs along the far wall, each one looking like they'd rather be literally anywhere else. Gerald Thornton's chair was empty.
Where's Gerald? Darius asked.
FBI picked him up at his home 45 minutes ago, Vivian said. She was standing, not sitting, hands in her pockets, calm in a way that told Darius she'd been preparing for this morning for a very long time. Agents executed a search warrant on his home office. They're also at Nexus headquarters in New Jersey. Margaret Chen looked at Darius. The last time they'd been in a room together, she'd wanted him suspended. Now she looked at him the way people look at someone they've underestimated and are trying to recalculate. Mr. Coleman, it appears we owe you an apology. I don't need an apology, ma'am. I need my name cleared. The board is prepared to issue a formal statement exonerating you of all allegations.
We'll also be cooperating fully with federal investigators. She paused.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry. The evidence against you was convincing. I should have looked deeper before making assumptions. Darius wanted to say something about what those assumptions were really based on, about how a black man from the South Side was always going to look guilty in a room full of people who'd never set foot south of the Loop. But he didn't. Not because he wasn't angry, because the anger wasn't useful right now, and he'd learned a long time ago to spend his energy where it counted. What about the live stream? He asked. Vivian answered. Full speed ahead. The board has approved field testing. We start deployment to 3 pilot clinics next month. Mississippi, rural Tennessee, and the south side of Chicago. The south side? Your neighborhood needs it as much as anywhere. Vivian's eyes held his. You built it for people like the ones you grew up with.
Seems right that they should be first. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Lawyers talked about liability. Board members talked about stock price. Robert Lawson walked through the legal implications of Gerald's arrest and what it meant for Horizon's exposure. Darius sat through all of it, answering questions when asked, keeping his voice steady, his hands flat on the table where they couldn't shake. When it was over, Margaret Chen stopped him in the hallway.
Mr. Coleman.
Ma'am?
Gerald Thornton sat in that boardroom for 20 years. He attended my daughter's wedding. I played golf with his wife.
Her voice was quiet.
I didn't see it. I didn't see any of it. And when the evidence pointed at you, I believed it because it was easier than believing that a man I'd trusted for 2 decades was a thief and a liar.
I understand.
No, You don't. And you shouldn't have to. She straightened her shoulders. You have my support going forward.
Whatever you need for the live stream, resources, funding, board approval, you'll have it. She walked away. Darius stood in the hallway of the 40th floor, looking out the window at the city below. Somewhere down there, in a federal building, Gerald Thornton was sitting across from FBI agents, learning that the reality he'd warned Darius about had finally caught up, just not to the person he'd planned. Megan found him in his office an hour later. She'd been reinstated, her access restored, her equipment replaced at company expense. The dark circles under her eyes were still there, but something else had moved in behind them. Relief. The particular likeness of someone who'd been carrying a weight they didn't have to carry anymore. You okay? She asked. Getting there. You? I slept in a hotel for 3 nights because someone broke into my apartment to steal evidence of a crime I was helping prove. So honestly, I've been better. She sat in the chair across from his desk. But I watched Gerald Thornton get arrested on the morning news while I was eating room service eggs, and that felt pretty good. Darius almost smiled. What happens now, with the engineering side? Now we build. The prototype works. Manufacturing is lined up. We've got 3 pilot sites confirmed. Megan leaned forward. Darius, the design you created, the simplified filtration, it's not just good. It's the kind of thing that changes an entire field. People in biomedical engineering are going to study what you did and wonder why nobody thought of it sooner. Somebody probably did. They just didn't have anyone willing to listen. Well, I'm listening, and so is every engineer on this floor. She stood. Team meeting at 2. They want to hear from you. Not about the scandal, about the work. At 2 o'clock, Darius stood in front of 12 engineers who'd watched his arrival with skepticism, his accusation with uncertainty, and his vindication with something that was slowly becoming respect. He didn't talk about Gerald, didn't talk about Nexus or the FBI, or the article that was now trending on every major news site in the country. He talked about the nurse practitioner in Mississippi, the one from the field reports he'd studied his first week. The woman who'd learned dialysis from YouTube because no one else would teach her, who ran a clinic with no backup generator and no air conditioning, who'd been sending patients away when her equipment broke because there was nobody to fix it and no money to replace it. That's who we're building this for, he said. Not for the board, not for the stock price, not for a line on anyone's resume. For her. For every clinic like hers. For every patient who gets told there's a treatment that could save their life, but it's not available where they live. He pulled up the live stream design on the screen. 3 moving parts. Modular filters. A machine that could be maintained by anyone with 2 hands and basic instructions. We built something simple. Some people called it unsophisticated. But simple is what works when the power goes out. Simple is what works when the nearest engineer is 200 miles away. Simple is what saves lives in places that the rest of the industry decided weren't profitable enough to care about. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then David, the young engineer who'd stared at his laptop during that first awful meeting with Gerald, raised his hand. When do we start manufacturing? Yesterday, Darius said. So let's get to work. The weeks that followed were the hardest and best of Darius's life. Manufacturing began on the simplified LifeStream units. Megan coordinated with the pilot clinics. Darius split his time between the engineering floor and video calls with the medical staff who'd be operating the machines. Nurses, technicians, community health workers who asked practical questions that no boardroom had ever considered. Where do we store the replacement filters? What happens if a patient pulls the line out accidentally? Can this thing survive a Mississippi summer without air conditioning? Good questions. Real questions. The kind that made the engineers better, because they came from people who lived the reality that technology was supposed to serve. At home, life recalibrated. The first full paycheck hit Darius's account, and he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the number like it might disappear. He paid the electric bill, paid the mortgage, current, not past due, for the first time in over a year. Paid Zara's tournament fee.
Bought Nyla new sneakers, the ones she'd been eyeing at the store with the purple laces and the little stars on the side. "Dad, these are the exact ones I wanted." Nyla held them up, beaming so wide her gap tooth looked like a badge of honor.
"I know, baby."
"How did you know?"
"Because you told me 11 times. Zara got new shoes too, though she pretended not to care. She also got a dentist appointment, her first in 3 years. And when Darius told her the Milwaukee tournament was paid for, all of it, travel and hotel and registration, she hugged him so hard he had to remind her he needed to breathe. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said into his shoulder. "I'm proud of you. You held this family together when I couldn't." "That's not true." "It is. You fed your sister when I worked late. You checked my face every morning to see if I was lying about being okay. You carried things no 13-year-old should have to carry, and you never once complained." His voice cracked.
He let it.
"Your mom would be so proud of you, Zara. You have no idea." She pulled back, eyes wet. Keisha's eyes. "She'd be proud of you, too." The field test started in January. Darius flew to Mississippi for the first deployment. Not on a corporate jet. Coach. Middle seat. Because some habits don't die just because the paycheck changes. The clinic was exactly what the reports had described. Small, underfunded, serving a community that had been forgotten by every system designed to help them. The nurse practitioner's name was Gloria, 57 years old. She'd been running the clinic alone for 12 years, serving patients who drove 40 miles each way for dialysis because there was nowhere closer. Darius set up the live stream himself, showed Gloria how to swap the filters, how to check the flow rates, how to troubleshoot the 3 things that could realistically go wrong, and fix each one in under 5 minutes. Gloria watched his hands as he worked. Steady hands.
Mechanic's hands. Hands that knew how to build things that lasted.
"You designed this?" she asked. "With a good team, yeah. It's so simple." That's the point. She ran the first cycle on a test patient, a 62-year-old man named Walter, who'd been driving 90 minutes each way 3 times a week for dialysis treatments that insurance barely covered. Walter sat in the chair and watched the machine do its work and didn't say anything for a long time. Then he looked at Darius. "This thing really gonna be here every time I need it?" "Every time." "And it's not gonna break down after a month like the last one they sent us?" "Not if I have anything to say about it." Walter nodded slowly. "My granddaughter lives 20 minutes from here. I moved away to be closer to the dialysis center in Jackson. Haven't seen her but twice a month in 3 years." His voice wavered. "If this works, if this really works, I can move back home."
Darius didn't trust himself to speak. He shook Walter's hand and walked outside, where the January air was cold, but nothing like the Chicago River. Nothing like the water that had started all of this. He stood in the parking lot of a clinic in rural Mississippi and let himself feel it. Not victory, not satisfaction, but something quieter. Purpose. The bone-deep knowledge that the work he was doing mattered, that it would outlast him, that somewhere a man was going to move home to be near his granddaughter because a machine built by a mechanic from the South Side actually worked. His phone buzzed. Vivian. "How's it going?" "It works," he said. "Vivian, it works." "I know it does, because you built it." A pause. "My father would have loved you, Darius.
He spent his whole life believing that business could be a force for good. You're proving him right.
I'm just an engineer.
You were never just anything.
He flew home that night, landed at O'Hare at 11, drove to the south side, through streets that had been his whole life, past the corner where he'd played basketball as a kid, past the church where he'd married Keisha, past Lou's auto shop where the lights were off, but the sign still glowed. 37 years of honest work in a 3-bay building on Ashland Avenue. The house on South Heritage was dark, except for the porch light. New boards on the porch now. He'd replaced them himself 2 weekends ago. Fence standing straight. Small things. The kind of repairs that signal someone cares enough to maintain what they have. Inside, both girls were asleep. Darius set his bag down quietly and walked the hallway. Nyla's door was cracked. She was out cold, rabbit under her chin, new purple sneakers placed carefully by her bed, like they were too precious to put in the closet. Zara's door was closed. He cracked it open. She was curled on her side, phone on the nightstand, and taped to her wall, this was new, a printout of the Tribune article. The one with his name. The one that called him a whistleblower and an engineer and a man who'd risked everything to do the right thing. She'd highlighted one line in yellow marker. Coleman, a single father of 2, turned down a $20,000 cash payment, saying he didn't pull Ashford from the river for money. He did it because it was the right thing to do. Darius closed the door softly and went to the kitchen. He sat at the table, the same table where he'd helped Nyla with fractions, where he'd stared at bills he couldn't pay, where he'd read emails from people trying to destroy him and decided to fight back. The same table where 4 years ago he'd sat alone the night after Keisha's funeral and wondered how he was supposed to keep going when the person who'd made going worth it was gone. Keisha's picture on the fridge, her smile. That smile. He opened the drawer where he'd been keeping things. The business card Vivian had given him at the shop. The tournament fee receipt. A crayon drawing Nyla had made of their family that included a large brown dog she'd labeled Future Puppy. And underneath it all, a folded piece of paper. Keisha's handwriting. A note she'd written during her last week in hospice, when her hands could barely hold the pen. He'd read it 1,000 times, could recite it from memory. But tonight he unfolded it and read it again. D, I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But you are the best man I've ever known. Not because you're perfect, because you never stop trying. Promise me you'll keep trying. Promise me you'll show our girls that the world is hard, but they are harder. Promise me you won't let losing me make you smaller. You were always bigger than you knew. I love you past the edge of everything. K. Darius folded the note and put it back, closed the drawer, wiped his face with the back of his hand, and sat in the quiet kitchen of his small house on the south side while the clock ticked and the furnace rattled and his daughters slept safe in their beds. His phone buzzed one more time. Zara, from her room, texting him even though he was 20 feet away, because that's what 13-year-olds do. I know you're home. I heard the door. Good night, Dad. I'm proud of you. He typed back. Good night, baby girl. I'm proud of you too. Then, and yes, this weekend, we're getting the dog. He could practically hear her scream into her pillow through the wall. Saturday morning, Darius woke at 5 out of habit. But for the first time in as long as he could remember, he didn't get up. He lay in bed and listened to the house. No sirens on Western Avenue, no furnace rattle. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean emptiness. The kind that means the people you love are close and safe and breathing. At 8, Nyla burst into his room.
Dad! Dad! Dad, Zara says we're getting a dog. Is that true? Are we really getting a dog? Can I pick the name? Can it sleep in my room? Can it be a big dog? I want a big dog.
We're going to the shelter. We'll see who's there.
What if they have a golden retriever? Brandon at school has a golden retriever, and it knows how to shake.
Then we'll meet the golden retriever.
What if there's 2 golden retrievers?
We're getting 1 dog, Nee.
What if they're brothers, and we can't separate them?
Darius looked at his daughter, gap-toothed, wild-haired, vibrating with joy at 7 in the morning, and started laughing. Real laughter. The kind that comes from somewhere below the ribs, from the place where grief lives next to gratitude, where loss and love share a room and somehow make each other stronger. At the shelter, Nyla fell in love with a 3-year-old golden retriever named Biscuit, who'd been surrendered by an elderly owner who couldn't care for him anymore.
Biscuit put his head in Nyla's lap, and that was that.
Dad,
Nyla whispered.
he chose me.
He sure did. Zara knelt beside them and scratched Biscuit behind the ears. The dog's tail wagged so hard his whole body moved. Zara looked up at Darius with Keisha's eyes and Keisha's smile and said,
We're keeping him.
We're keeping him. They drove home with Biscuit in the back seat, head out the window, ears flapping. Nyla narrating the entire journey for him.
That's our grocery store, Biscuit. That's where Dad gets gas. That's our street. See the house with the new porch? That's us.
Darius parked. The girls tumbled out with a dog. Zara ran ahead to open the front door. Nyla walked Biscuit up the steps to the porch, the new porch, with boards that didn't creak, that held weight without complaining. Before he went inside, Darius stopped, looked at the house. Small brick bungalow, south side of Chicago. Fence standing straight now, porch solid. His daughter's laughter coming through the open door mixed with the scrabbling sound of dog nails on hardwood. He thought about the river, about the cold, about a woman's blue eyes behind glass, certain she was going to die, about a fist hitting a window, once, twice, 3 times, 4, about the choice to jump when every rational thought said, don't. He thought about Gerald Thornton in a federal holding cell, about Nexus Biomed under SEC investigation, about Walter in Mississippi packing boxes to move home to be near his granddaughter, about Gloria running the life stream every day in her clinic, patients no longer driving 90 miles for treatment that should have been available all along. He thought about Keisha, about her note, about the promise she'd asked him to make.
Don't let losing me make you smaller. You were always bigger than you knew.
Dad! Nyla's voice from inside.
Biscuit's on the couch. Is that okay?
Yeah, Nye, that's okay. He walked up the steps, through the door, into the house that Keisha had made a home, that grief had made a fortress, that 2 little girls and 1 stubborn man had kept standing through every storm the world could throw. Zara was in the kitchen, making eggs. Not 4 split 3 ways, a full dozen, because they could afford it now, because the refrigerator was full, because the bills were paid and the mortgage was current, and for the first time in 4 years, the math finally worked.
You're staring, Zara said without turning around.
Just remembering.
Mom?
Yeah. Zara turned. Keisha's smile on her face, bright and certain, and full of the kind of knowing that shouldn't belong to someone so young, but did, because life had made her that way, and she'd chosen to be strong instead of bitter.
She'd say you did good, Dad.
Darius looked at his daughter, at Nyla on the floor with Biscuit, giggling as the dog licked her face, at the sunflower clock, still ticking on the wall,
At the house that was small and imperfect
and entirely, completely theirs. He'd been a husband, a widower, an engineer, a mechanic, a suspect, a target. A man who jumped into a frozen river because someone needed saving. And a man who almost drowned in a different kind of water. The slow, grinding current of poverty and grief, and a world that told him every day that people like him didn't get to reach for more. He reached anyway, and he was still standing.
"Yeah," Darius Coleman said. "I think she would." He walked into the kitchen, kissed Zara on the top of her head, and sat down at the table where everything had started and everything had changed. Nyla brought Biscuit over, and the dog settled at Darius's feet with a sigh, like he'd been waiting his whole life to find this exact spot, in this exact house, with these exact people.
Outside, the November sun broke through the clouds over the south side of Chicago, and for the first time in a long time, the light that came through the kitchen window hit the table just the way Keisha always said it would. Warm and steady, and enough. Darius Coleman didn't save a billionaire's life to get rich. He didn't fight a corporate war to be a hero. He did it because the same hands that pulled a woman from a river were the same hands that made his daughter's breakfast every morning. And those hands didn't know how to quit. Some people are born into lives that hand them everything. Others build their lives from what the world leaves behind. And every now and then, one of those people builds something so strong, so stubborn, so full of love, that not even the river can pull it under.